15 million Americans consider themselves addicted, whether it be to alcohol, drugs, eating, gambling, or love. The cure most offered to those who suffer from this disease, or these diseases, includes programs like Alcoholics Anonymous. But according to Dr. Stanton Peele, addictions are not a disease, and 12-step programs can do more harm than good. Dr. Peele is here to explain this very controversial theory. Also with us is Dr. Ronald Pike, Medical Director of AdCare Hospital in Worcester, who disagrees with Dr. Peele. He believes Dr. Peele's message is harmful for those addicts who are trying to recover. And believe me, in a very short while, we'll open up our phones so that you can get involved in this discussion. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
It is my understanding, and I believe the public's understanding, Dr. Peele, that the medical community believes that addiction is a disease.
Well, Dr. Pike makes money from dealing with it as a disease, but one thing that...
Aren't you making money from saying that it isn't?
Oh, Lord willing, I hope I'll make some money, but not as much as the people that charge $12,000. Kitty Dukakis, how many times has she been in the hospital and paid for treating all of her diseases, all of which she still has? The truth about addiction recovery tells a simple truth that really everybody already knows, but I remind people about. Most people in their lives will encounter some addiction or another. Most people are able to overcome these addictions on their own. Let me give you just a primary example. In interviews with alcoholics and drug addicts, they tell us the hardest addiction to quit is smoking. 40 million Americans have quit smoking. 45 million, 40 million have quit on their own. How much help would it have been to tell them, you have a disease, you can never overcome this disease, you must be treated out of this addiction or you'll never recover? The logic behind this, to make people dependent on treatment, to make people dependent on groups, perhaps is needed for some people, but a large majority of people have proven on their own that they'll overcome drinking problems, drug problems, smoking problems, overeating problems on their own without the help of treatment.
Go back to the disease issue. You say it is not a disease. Alcoholism is not a disease?
No. It's not a disease.
Why have we heard for years that it is?
Well, I mean, the idea that behind the disease theory of alcoholism, it tells us a bunch of things. It tells us if you ever have a drinking problem, that problem can only grow worse. It's the idea of progression. If you deny that you have a drinking problem or you deny that you're an alcoholic, then you're practicing denial. If you think back to college, for those who spent time in the 60s in college, if you thought about the number of people who smoked a tremendous amount of marijuana, who drank to the point of blackout, the large majority of those people outgrew those problems when they became involved in family, they became involved in work, when they matured out. And what the truth about addiction and recovery is talking about is tapping into this fundamental truth that we all know and accelerating the natural processes which work the best. Incidentally, we're here in Boston. There was a man named George Vaillant, a famous psychiatrist. You've heard of George Vaillant, haven't you? He wrote a book called The Natural History of Alcoholism. He toted his own program at Cambridge Hospital. Then he revealed that he studied his own program and found that alcoholics were no more likely to recover from his program than on their own. And he ended his book by saying, what we need to do most is to understand the natural processes of recovery, those things that are an inherent part of our lives. And the truth about addiction and recovery is an attempt to extract those information from all the people who've quit addictions on their own and to lay out those steps so people can make use of them in their own lives.
I want Dr. Pike to jump in here, but I would think that some out there would say, hold it a minute. Those folks who drank to excess in college, smoked marijuana, tried things and stopped, were not predisposed to disease. Dr. Pike, how do you feel about this?
What happens is that I think there's a fine line that many scholars have been looking over the years that where the biogenetics come into this, the disease. World Health Organization many years ago, who probably has many members much smarter than I had decided that it was a disease. The AMA decided it was a disease. But the biogenetics is really important. 10 or 15 years ago, we probably would have said that, geez, maybe we should question this. But now the research is coming out quite fast where the biogenetics, what that means, we have done family studies. I mean, Goodwin and Gentleman Scandinavian studies have showed that it does run in families. And there is good proof with sibling investigations and adoptees.
By the way, did you notice the study that was published in JAMA that claimed that they had found the genetic source for alcoholism last year?
Yes, it did, and it's been disproved. But
disproved
that's part
of 6 months.
But that's part of science. I mean,
but that it would be published in the JAMA and spread all over the United States shows how ready we are to say, it's genetic, I couldn't do anything about it. See, the issue is...
That, you'll forgive me, but we do that with statistics on everything from breast cancer to colon cancer. Studies are conducted.
Well, the main question that I have is how helpful is it to tell somebody you're genetically predisposed to be any one of these problems? You see, what they do is they start out with this little
isn't
pyramid.
It helpful so that that person can perhaps watch how much they drink?
Even in the case where people have parents who are alcoholics, being warned exclusively that you're bound to be an alcoholic if you ever drink is going to do more harm than good. Telling people they should be careful and be aware of that background is one thing. Telling people you're preordained to be alcoholic. You see, what the truth about addiction and recovery talks about is the fact that we start with a pyramid with the people who are most extreme at the top. And what's happening, he claims that Dr. Pike claims that we're looking at we've got to separate between genetically predisposed and everybody else. What's happening is we're looking at everybody, no matter what kind of drinking problems you have. College students now, the incarceration of adolescents in mental hospitals increased 450% over the 80s. Why? Because they go out now and they look at every kid who uses marijuana or abuses marijuana, and they say, you know what, you're probably part of this tip of the iceberg who is genetically predisposed to alcoholism. These guys have made money by he draws a distinction between the genetically predisposed and everybody else. That boundary has been constantly lessened, and we get a lower and lower level of alcoholic to throw them into treatment and tell them they're preordained for life to be alcoholic, because that's how you expand your markets.
I think you, with the treatment issue, I think does the treatment decide the disease or not? And I think that's kind of a back way to come about whether there's disease or not. I mean, treatment has been, people, as you said yourself, I mean, people finish their addictions without treatment, obviously, which is all part of a lot of
Kitty
addictions.
Dukakis failed at her treatment. What percentage of people fail at their treatment?
Well, it could be close to 30–40%.
So 70% go into treatment and succeed. Kitty Dukakis is just the exception. Do you have data that show that 70% of your people...
You'll forgive me, but Kitty Dukakis failed at her treatment, and she's now sober.
Yeah, Kitty Dukakis went into treatment as a person who had drank. She's not sober. She's taking lithium. She's taking drugs. She went into treatment and she found out that she was alcoholic, that she was chemically dependent, that she was manic depressive. She discovered more and more diseases that she had. Kitty Dukakis looks worse now than before she entered treatment. She used to be an alive, vibrant human being. Now she looks like an automaton. Hold on. Do you have data that shows that you cure 70% of your people?
Cure, there's no cure, excuse me.
I beg your pardon. Do you have data that show that 70% of your people recover?
We have recent studies out that
Recent studies. Where are they published?
We don't publish. We haven't
You know,
published.
why don't we do it?
Now, 70% recovery rate would be astounding.
Right.
That would be the most modern medical cure, because George Valiant found that his hospital, Cambridge Hospital, did no better than the natural cure
Dr. Peele,
than the natural age. Do you think he should be sued for malpractice?
I'm going to stop you from studies, because you know what? To the person that is watching us, who is really...
He's claiming 70% of his people are recovering. He's the one who's throwing numbers around.
No. Excuse me. To the woman or the man out there, or the mother or the father who is dealing with an addicted issue in their home, they don't care about studies. They care about getting their child or their loved one well. They care about 12-step programs that allow them to admit that they are powerless over the disease, and you say those don't help, and they don't
How
work.
many people have come to me and said, thank you, Dr. Peele, for describing what happened to my son. We threw him into a private hospital, sent him down to Arizona. They harassed him. They tried to convince him he was an alcoholic. He came back home. He immediately went out as soon as he got home and started drinking again. He said, please, what they're telling me, there just isn't making sense. There must be some other way to help me. Private programs do not work with adolescents, and I'm offering these parents a whole other way of thinking about their problem.
You talk to a parent whose child has been a member of Straight and has gotten clean, and they're going to disagree with you.
Right.
That's for one program. Tough Love works for other parents.
Straight's a program, that's been heavily criticized for involuntarily incarcerating people.
We know the media.
The media love 12-step programs. The media are the ones who have made us feel that these programs are so much more successful than they actually are. And people know these things. People understand if you say to them, when you were a kid, do you know what sowing your wild oats means? Do you know what kinds of trouble adolescents get into? There's a chance to outgrow that if you don't harbor the person in and label them.
It sounds like you give permission for young people to experiment and have fun and forget the fact that they might become addicted.
These people are already taking the drugs before I got here. Please don't lay that on me. The question is, people and adolescents do a lot of aberrant things. The issue is, are they marked for life by that, or, as the truth about addiction and recovery states, do they have a chance to grow into normal people? How much good does it do to tell, what percentage of youth drink too much? The statistics are that over 50% of high school boys get drunk at least once every 2 weeks. What good is it going to do for us to, as much as we dislike that, what good is it going to do us and them to say, you've got a disease, you'll never be able to drink normally, you should never drink again if you're 17, if you live to 77 years old, don't drink for 60 years.
I think you're making a general statement. I don't think the treatment industry or anybody in addiction tells all those high school students that you're all going to be alcoholic. We understand that adolescence is a time for experimentation. We understand you go through these levels. But what's important out there is that we make them realize that there is a time when there's a certain percentage of you that may go on to addictions.
Have you ever had an adolescent in your hospital that you've said you're not really an alcoholic?
Yes.
And you've told them that you don't really need this whole treatment program.
Right, and we've discharged them.
God bless you then. Oh,
the thing is, and we've discharged from the hospital.
Responsible programs do that.
Most programs don't turn people. You know who Charter Medical is?
Some?
Yes, Charter Medical. They had a feature.
Can you name more than one?
I can name all of them. CompCare was featured on CBS News, where a father came in and said, "My daughter, I think, has been smoking marijuana. She's been dating an older man." They took her right in, put her into the treatment center, and she said, "You know, I don't really have a drug problem." They said, "This is denial. That proves that you're in denial." Everybody knows that they're flooding adolescents into these programs, and that's how they make money. Charter Medical is featured on 20/20, where they send people out in ambulances chasing kids to get them into the hospital.
You know, you'll forgive me, but if someone you love has cancer, you take them to a hospital, and the hospital will charge you for the service to help cure the cancer. And let me just say, we have to take a break.
And cancer is so different from smoking and drinking too much that if people can't recognize that difference, then we're in deep trouble as a society.
Let me just say, to clarify, what Dr. Peele is saying is that these addictions are not diseases, and to be marked as a young person by claiming they have a disease is not the right thing to do.
Well, that's a very good summary. Thank you very much.
You're helping me to express myself better. The young person who goes out and gets drunk
they shouldn't do it. I'm totally against that.
Or is arrested is
and I think that people have a better...
Dr. Stanton Peele and Dr. Pike are our guests this morning, and we are heavily involved here in a debate whether alcoholism is a disease, whether 12-step programs work. Let's get you involved. Good morning. You're on Good Day.
Good morning, Arnie.
Go right ahead.
My name is Patty, and I'm from Wakefield.
Go ahead, Patty.
Let me tell you, I'm sitting here on the couch, and I want to jump through the TV and grab this Dr. Peele by the neck.
You have violent feelings. Can those be treated, do you think?
I don't think this is funny.
A tendency towards violence?
I don't think this is funny. Why are you
angry? When somebody expresses a different idea, somebody wants to kill them?
Well, let's find out why.
Let me just say one thing. If it was not for AdCare Hospital, which I went to, and my husband also went through the program, we have now been sober for 4 years. Without their help, we could not have done it on our own.
Okay, and God bless you then. What about the people who fail at this program? What should they do?
Well, I'm just interested in myself and my husband. I don't know who failed the program.
Does anybody fail the program, would you say?
I don't know who failed the program.
Did you see anybody when you were there who didn't do as well as you with the program?
Well, it wouldn't be her job to follow up.
Well, see, what I'm saying is it's great that this helps her.
No, yes, I did keep in touch with one girlfriend. Yes, and she is sober also 4 years.
Okay, so it's great that you succeed at the program, and I'm talking to people who aren't comfortable in those programs and who don't succeed at them.
Just a minute, Pat.
Not everybody likes...
Yes.
Do you have a disease?
Yes. Of course it's a disease.
What is your disease?
Alcoholism.
Do you have any other diseases?
No, I do not.
Do you smoke?
No.
Do you overeat?
No.
So your only disease is alcoholism. You don't have a problem with Valium or any other drug?
No, I do not. And it ran in the family too.
How are your children doing, Patty?
I'm married. I'm 40. I don't have any children.
We thank you for the call, Patty. Apparently our phone lines are backed up to Kingdom Come. Let's try to get as many calls in as we can. Good morning. You're on Good Day.
Hi, my name is Cheryl, and I'm from Stoneham. And I have just completed my second year of sobriety without any 12-step program ever. And I don't really have a question. I guess I have a comment in that I'm still to this day not sure that it's something that I shouldn't have done.
Why didn't you do it?
Why
didn't you not go to a 12-step program?
Because I didn't feel like it was for me.
What about it did you have a problem with?
I feel like sometimes people give up the one addiction and take that on as a new addiction by going there 7 nights a week, rain or shine, they have to be there. And I just think that that's a new addiction.
What's sobriety? Now, you're sober from alcohol?
Yes.
Did you ever know of anybody who quit alcohol without going to a 12-step group?
Absolutely.
So some people actually maintain, have you ever heard this, that people can never quit drinking without a 12-step group? So this comment...
No, I've never heard anyone say that people can never quit drinking without a 12-step
You've never heard one person
program.
say that. Let's have a person call in then, whether if they believe that. Because some people would be amazed that a woman can get on and say, I've succeeded without a 12-step group. Now, by the way, in many cases, if you say, I want to quit drinking on my own, they'll say to you, what will they say to you? that you're in denial. You don't realize that you're an alcoholic and you can't do it on your own.
God bless anyone who can stay sober on their own. A lot of people can't. Don't you fear for the generalities that you espouse, that you will hurt people that do need 12 steps?
Who's going to take responsibility for Kitty Dukakis almost killing herself after going to a hospital?
I think it's time to let Kitty off the hook here.
But is anybody responsible for that?
Can you name any other person? Is it because you're in Massachusetts?
Drew Barrymore is somebody who almost committed suicide after she almost attempted suicide after she entered treatment. The list is endless. Joan Kennedy, somebody else in Massachusetts. The list of failures is out there, and there's nobody responsible for them.
But you
well,
forget,
they should have gone to a 12-step program.
You forget all the positive notes. There are people that did go through treatment and did not commit suicide, became productive lives, put their businesses, put their finances back together, put their families back together.
And that's great. And what we need is a much more, would you agree we need a much more versatile approach for all the people who either cannot get into these programs
and what would you suggest?
And who fail at these? What I'm suggesting is...
Excuse me,
go ahead.
Let's put out the... we have the IOM report right now. It's telling us how different treatments that's necessary.
Absolutely.
The treatment industry has responded. Correct. We have responded to that. Years ago, what is it, 20, 30 years ago, when an alcoholic was a Skid Row bum, was someone that only got in trouble. It was difficult to even say you're an alcoholic because you'd lose your job. This exists today.
But the IOM doesn't say that more people should say they're alcoholics. It says that we should go out to people and say...
I agree with you, but
we should go to people and say whatever your drinking problem is. But you don't have to say you're an alcoholic. You have a drinking problem. We can deal with it in a variety of ways.
But I think you're telling the people out there that the people that are severely addicted to alcohol, severely dependent to alcohol, they don't have a disease. They just have a problem. Well, you're saying no, like the President of the United States says. That was the worst campaign that ever hit America because our children...
Reagan, I think. Yeah.
President Reagan, right.
I think it was his wife. Go on.
Right. But he had to say it could go. The thing is that we need the treatment for those
Kitty
people
Dukakis
that
said
are
yes,
certain...
that she did have a disease. She has a bunch of diseases. So just to declare that you have a disease isn't a solution by itself. We need a broader approach.
I don't think Kitty Dukakis would say that that's enough. Isn't that demeaning to intimate that she would say it's enough to just say
Kitty
I have
Dukakis,
a disease?
after she went through that treatment program, went out on the lecture circuit. She was in the cover of People magazine lecturing other people about their addictions and saying that, that you have to admit that you have a disease. Then we find out that she almost kills herself. We have, in many cases, the blind leading the nearsighted. We take the worst examples of people and they say, I can't live through my life. I have to swear to one group or another. Why don't you all do it like me? I'm saying in the truth about, let me be clear what I'm doing. The truth about addiction recovery speaks to the large majority of people who are not comfortable saying I have a lifetime disease, who will not succeed at a treatment program and who oughtn't to be in that kind of a program. And it says, here's a range of ways that people deal with these problems. Let me tune you into them so you can be aware of it. Isn't it amazing
that
you do say there are some people that may have a disease then?
Yeah.
I don't say that, I say some people are benefited by treatment, but
you
nobody...
did just say that. You said there's a certain majority that don't need that treatment, which we've already agreed to that. That's a huge subject. Of course there are people out there that may be able to stop and don't go back. For some reason, they realize that something's going on with their bodies. We have colds. What do we do with colds? We stay home. We take care of ourselves. The cold goes away. They don't go to doctors. Well, they don't go. They stay home and they.
You don't have any clue to what I realize. And now I'm going to ask you about heroin.
Smoking,
you claim in your book.
Smoking is harder, as the Surgeon General said himself, that smoking is an addiction exactly like crack and heroin addiction. More people who smoke are addicted to cigarettes than who smoke crack. Smoking and nicotine is the most addictive drug. Start there. That's true. Smoking is the most reinforcing and addictive substance we know about. Yet, 60% of people who've attended college who've ever smoked now have quit smoking. How do they do it? The Truth About Addiction Recovery says, how do people clarify their values and integrate their lives?
If you plug your book one more time on this segment, you've plugged your book about 8 times. You talk about treatment centers wanting to make money. Good morning. You're on Good Day.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes, I'm 18 years old, and I got sober the first time I was 14, and my life was miserable, okay, and I had nothing from the inside, okay, and it took the people in AA and NA and a very thorough rehab to support me, because I wasn't strong enough from the inside to just say, okay, I'm done, because it is a disease, and it starts from the inside out. And the gentleman on the left is one of the most ignorant people I have heard in a long time about it. We're not all as perfect as you, and we're not all built up from the inside.
Dr. Peele also says that saying that blaming a disease for a relapse or actions taken during the addiction, that if you call it a disease, that you're allowed then to blame the disease for any actions that you've taken. Now, you, caller, is that so bad?
I believe it is. I am responsible for my own actions. My disease isn't. My disease is responsible. It's the disease of the feelings to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
what about the biological explanation Dr. Pike was giving? Do you buy that?
I missed that part.
Are
He
you
said that you were
genetically
born-
predisposed? Are you biologically predisposed to drinking, do you think? Do you
I
think you had a
believe so.
weakness for it in your body?
It's rampant throughout my family.
Okay.
Now, you said the first time at 14. What's your history been like between these 4 years? It sounds like you've had your ups and downs in this process.
I was sober for a year and a half, and then I went back out for, I'm not sure how long. I've been sober 15 months this time.
Now, why
Good
did
for
you
you.
relapse the first time, would you say? What was the cause of your relapse?
I was having a lot of problems in my life at home, and instead of choosing to deal with them, I chose to drink and do drugs.
How are those problems at home going now? How is that working?
Me and my mother get along great. I don't live at home any longer. I was there last night for dinner, and it was great. You know, we are friends today.
What are you getting to?
Oh, well, whenever you look at one of these stories, of course, what you find out is it's the complicated array of things that lead to addiction. It's often the family situation, often an inability to get involved in school. My book deals with how do you help people get on a right track by helping them address directly problems like family problems, school problems, work problems, because my approach says that the addiction will follow, and perhaps his talk is even consistent with that. Once you're able to address your real life problems, then you find that you have less of a need to rely on the addiction. He said he turned to the addiction in response to family problems.
What would
We
you
often
say
find
about the
that's
student
case.
who does very well all the way through the 9th grade? In the 10th grade, somebody offers them drugs, cocaine, a joint. They smoke it, they take it, they start to do, and the whole life crumbles. They go home, they don't know how to act with their parents, they certainly don't then know how to study or concentrate, and everything revolves around drug use. What do you say to that, Dr. Pike?
Well, the thing is, we first have to look at the family situation. I mean, does he have alcoholism and drug addiction in his family? And that would make him, could he have been predisposed? I think we're forgetting that biogenetic issue, which is very important because that's where we're going to probably prevent a lot of youngsters, adolescents, or even adults getting involved with drugs.
But aren't we also forgetting that cocaine, for instance, is one of the most insidious addictions in the whole world?
Are you saying that if somebody's not biogenetically predisposed to cocaine, they won't become addicted to it?
Not necessarily, but that is, we know the studies have pointed to that. If they don't, but we know there's other theories.
Is there any danger in what he's saying, do you think, that people say, well, I don't have a history of family, so I can try these drugs? Is that a danger, do you think?
No, that's just one way we're going to try and prevent it. Other
How
things
do you
is there's the
prevent a
reinforcement.
biogenetically predisposed person? Can you give us some insight into how you prevent that person?
How do you prevent it? It's through education.
What do you tell them?
We tell them the possibility that you may have 2 to 3, 4 times the chance of becoming addicted.
So what do you recommend as a policy for them to follow?
Recommended that either one of 2 things, that they don't drink or they watch their drinking very closely.
Do you have any apprehensions about telling a 15-year-old they should never drink for the rest of their lives?
What difference does it make? What harm does that do to tell somebody that if they're predisposed?
Because we're always telling kids not to drink, and they never listen to us. Haven't you noticed that? We tell them all kinds of things.
How many deaths on the road that we should have told children that they don't drink?
Oh, it's not as though we don't tell people they shouldn't drink enough in the U.S. today. They just don't listen.
I think it's very important that we don't tell people to drink. Matter of fact, I think there's not enough out. There's not enough out there to tell adults not to drink. That's one of the biggest reasons for accidents in our country.
Right.
Trauma.
And we had prohibition once, and that just didn't seem to cut it.
But
So
we're
many
not
people
talking
still do
about
that.
prohibition.
We're
You're all
telling
over the
people that our
place
main
here.
policy is to tell them they should not drink as an approach to dealing with alcoholism. That's going to doom to fail because we know most Americans drink. We have to give them something more substantial that they can deal with in their lives.
Excuse me, but I'm going to take a call. Good morning. You're on Good Day.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm 7 years sober. I went through the AA program and also am seeking help through a psychologist. I do believe that your disease is a two-part thing. It's part physical, and that's an addiction, but the other part is of compulsion. And if you don't deal with the compulsion issue, whether you quit on your own or you quit through AA, if you don't deal with the compulsion, you're always going to be substituting something for that compulsion. So how can you deal with the mental compulsion?
Tell us more about what causes the mental compulsion.
Excuse me?
Tell us more about what you mean by compulsion. What causes the compulsion?
I mean substituting the cigarette for the addiction, or substituting stealing or sex.
Now, you've been sober for 7 years, and how did you go about doing that?
Well, I originally went to AA and did find that the AA program does ask you to live it 7 days a week and go there 7 days a week, or you will fail. And
Did you have a problem with that?
Well, I don't agree with that. However, I will not stand here today and tell you that I got sober on my own. I got sober with their support.
How
But
did they react?
the AA program didn't tell you, at the beginning they asked you to go 7 days a week so you could get familiar, find the correct groups that you want to go into,
Yep.
and at 7 years out, AA is still there to help you, and you still should be going to those groups, but nobody tells you to make it a so-called habit.
Well,
As
let's
Dr.
ask her a
Peele says.
question.
Can we
Let's
just-
ask her a question.
well,
How did they react when you stopped going to the group?
They always accept you no matter what wrong.
They didn't have a problem with you.
However,
Have you
leaving
ever
the group?
been to an AA meeting, Dr.
Of course
Peele?
I've been to an AA
You
meeting.
have.
And what I've done, the Truth About Addiction and Recovery interviews many people who failed at 12-step groups. It's fine if somebody succeeds. It's fine if somebody succeeds and leaves. But what I talk about, what I interview, let's talk about what's in my book that can be
We have
helpful to
done a
people.
lot of that. I'm going to ask Dr. Pike a question here. When this woman mentions, you know, really.
This is a book, and it tells about the
You
people
are-
who don't succeed
you-
at the 12-step
yeah,
group,
we
and it
know.
interviews people who've succeeded without it, and
You're
talks
a
about how
first
they
for
went
me
about
in
it.
my 13 years on this show. You are definitely a first. Dr. Pike, would you agree
Barb
that
was on your show before.
every... You've changed. Every rehab...
I wrote Love and Addiction, remember? That's the book that helped you to
Yeah.
understand you were codependent. Now I'm telling you, you can get beyond that
This man.
that definition.
I'm going to ask Dr. Pike a question. This is still my show, Dr. Peele.
All right.
If you'd like to leave, you can. Dr.
I'm
Peele,
enjoying myself. Dr. Pike, his name is.
Dr. Pike, the prevention programs, the rehabs, would you not agree that they get involved in all the emotional issues that
Yes,
people
they
bring
do.
with them? And would you not also agree that AA and others, in saying you're powerless over this, it gives you a sense, a way to shed some of the guilt for the acting out you did while you were?
Well, the thing is, I mean, the 12 steps is, if we all practice 12 steps, I personally believe, I think we'd probably have a better world. I mean, that sounds...
Maybe every American should be in a 12-step group?
No, we should practice them. I'm not saying be in a 12-step group. Practice the 12 steps where we look at ourselves and have a
Personal
more...
inventory.
Personal inventory.
How come you
Talk
never
about
ask
how...
any of the callers' questions? You always just tell that lady, like, well, the 12-step group's always there.
What
How come
questions
you're
would
always
you...
lecturing to people instead of
Well, why would you ask me to
people?
ask her that she shouldn't... Why did you go to AA? When
How do
she's
you
already
get your
been seven
information? You see,
years
the
sober,
problem with
you
the
asked
12
me that...
But she quit AA. She doesn't get. She's not.
She does
sober
not
through
quit
AA.
AA. She still goes back. You
How do
missed
you-
that point. She
you,
went...
No. You said she could go back. See,
She
the
did go
problem
back.
with
Dr.
12-step groups
Peele,
is they don't go.
I have to tell you that
My
this
book
is
is
over.
asking people questions. I'm
We'll
going
be
out
back.
and not afraid
Thank
to
you,
ask people
callers.
different questions.
Thank you, Dr. Pike, very much. We'll be back. Don't go away. More of a good day.